Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm DFG and welcome to the DFGSpot. Today we'll be going over Hearthstone patch 5.0.0 in preparation for Whispers of the Old God expansion. And without further ado, here we go. The first card being nerfed from the Druid class is the Ancient of Lore. It is a 7 mana 5/5. Choose one, draw 2 cards, or restore 5 health. The nerf being given to it is simply choose one, draw a card, or restore 5 health. As you notice, the stat line stays the same. Now, as far as the 5/5 stat line goes, it's on par with 5 mana cards. Yes, there's Pit Fighter 5 mana 5/6, Lotheb 5 mana 5/5, but overall, the 5 mana card slot is kind of weak, so a 5/5 is fair. Drawing 2 cards is usually around 3 mana, that stat being derived from Arcane Intellect. So, old Ancient of Lore, the verdict is it's a strong body, good effect, and it's a great card, so it's always seen. And as a preamble to explain the further card nerfs, I knew to explain what the combo is, and I'll talk about it later in the video. Clarification on the combo is the Force of Nature Savage Roar. It allowed a 14 charge burst damage against your opponent. You really couldn't stop it besides a taunt, and, like I said, we'll get to that later. But Ancient of Lore allowed the player to replenish your hand constantly and kind of like outlast your opponent in later turns, like not into fatigue, but like, as you're going like card for card, you play Ancient of Lore, you draw 2 more, you're kind of refueling as your opponent is starting to run out of gas. The Restore 5 health was only used as like a fringe way to escape lethal against face decks. Otherwise, it only usually prevented lethal by like a turn or 2, if that. So maybe like, you heal, you don't die to whatever they have on board, then you can do combo. But, other than that, like Restore 5 health usually wasn't used. It's usually the draw 2 cards. But most importantly, and to kind of reiterate one of my past points, is it allowed the player to dig deeper into their decks, giving, the illusion of them having the combo. Whether the Druid player actually had the cards or not, it forced the opposing player, the non-Druid, to constantly clear. Otherwise, the power of the combo would be far greater than just the 14 damage. And, it made a very frustrating experience to play against, because if they have, like, something like small, even like a piloted Shredder, well, now the combo goes from 14 damage, now you have the +4 from the Shredder already on the board, and then another +2 target, so then you have 20 damage burst. So you're constantly clearing. It makes you do it inefficiently because of constant fear of the combo they might not even have, but since they played Ancient of Lore and they keep drawing these extra cards, you don't know. And in conjunction with other Druid class cards like Keeper of the Grove, Wrath, Innervate, Swipe, Wild Growth, and the combo, it always felt like Druid has the answer he or she needed and felt like you were playing against both Druid and the clock. It never felt good. They have so much flexibility. Like with Wrath, they can pick one. The choose one mechanic. Keeper of the Grove, choose one. Swipe is just a good clear all around. Wild Growth can be used to accelerate your curve, or it could be used to draw a card later in the game. So they have so many options. It feels like, no matter what you do to the Druid's always like, hey, I gotcha. So back to the nerf. Since now it's only draw 1 card, it's nerfed by roughly 1.5 mana worth of stats. It's not, it's iffy. I mean, you can say that, but it's not exactly true because there's something to be said about, like, combining, a body and an effect into 1 card. There's something to be said about that. My alternative, I think, to make it fair would be make it a 6 mana 5/5, draw 1 card or restore 5 health. That's like comparable to Shield Maiden, about 5 armor is about worth a card. I mean, it's hard to compare these things, but I mean, I think that'd be a fair alternative. I think the way they nerfed it now kind of made it, it's not horrible, I mean, but I think it's below the threshold of constructed playability. It's just not bringing enough value to the table for its big mana cost. Now on to Force of Nature. In its current state, excuse me, give me a moment. I'm scrolling through my notes. Summon 6 mana, summon 3 2/2 treants with charge that die at the end of your turn. As mentioned earlier, this is used in conjunction with Savage Roar. 3 mana, give all characters +2 damage for that turn. As mentioned earlier, this is used as Savage Roar to make a 14 damage charge combo that can all be played from your hand for 9 mana total. What I didn't touch upon earlier is that Druids run Emperor Thaurissan, 2 copies of both Force of Nature and Savage Roar, and then combined with the aforementioned Innervates. This allows Druids to do combos to get, they gather these cards together to make super combos, doing like possibly like Force of Nature, Savage Roar, which is 22 damage, or hell, even the double combo where you get 2 Force of Natures, 2 Savage Roars, then you have 40 charge damage coming down on your board. I mean, that one's pretty ridiculous to pull off, but I mean, it can happen. So, the nerf. They changed it to 5 mana, summon 3 2/2 Treants. That's it. To me, that sounds pretty weak. 5 mana for 6/6 worth of stats is pretty good, but across multiple bodies, usually that's a good thing, but in this case, like them having 2 health, it kind of makes them weak to damage area of effect spells, namely Consecrate or, even Demon Wrath, or, like 2 damage isn't too uncommon, so I think it's weak. Ultimately, this change was done to preserve like the healthy playstyle of Savage Roar, because they like Savage Roar. I mean, because it's simple, but it's pretty healthy. Step 1, you get board control. Step 2, you make incremental board advantages, whittle down your opponent, you make favorable trades. Step 3, you calculate if you're in lethal range and use Savage Roar to kill your opponent. Or you could use it to, make those favorable trades. But, they like Savage Roar. It's a healthy mechanic, so they decided that Force of Nature is the issue and not Savage Roar, which I agree with. I think it's a fair nerf, not to Force of Nature, but a fair nerf to the health of the game in general. Now on to Keeper of the Grove. Pre-nerf, 4 mana, 2/4, choose one, silence a minion, or deal 2 damage. Now the nerf. Same card text, but now it's a 4 mana, 2/2. Does the same thing, silence a minion, or deal 2 damage. The old Keeper of the Grove, it felt bad to play against because it would kind of like wreck aggro decks. You would like, let's say they play Knife Juggler, you would like deal 2 damage, destroy it, and then like you could trade into a Lepronome and Abusive Sergeant, and you could pretty much go for like a 3-for-1 trade. Like, and don't get me wrong, I hate aggro, but like, when cards are like legitimately 3-for-1ing, it feels pretty crappy. But I'm a control player, so here's where I feel the pain. Silence felt bad because let's say you spend your 8 mana to summon that Tyrion Fordring, and a lot of his power comes from the Divine Shield, the Taunt, and the 5/3 Weapon Death Rattle. That's what Tyrion is. So now you spend most of your turn, or all of your turn, playing Tyrion, and you just get cut down by a cheap effective silence, and now you just have a 6/6, and like he has a 2/4, and then he has 6 mana to play something himself. It kind of felt crappy. Now, my verdict on the nerf. In my opinion, it's fair. It's still playable, but it's more of a fringe situational pick. Like, it's not, yeah, as it should be. It should be a fringe situational pick. It's generally unhealthy to have cards that are so strong they're auto-includes, because that means, the deck, or, the class, Druid, for example, always has to run Keeper, and, like, auto-includes are kind of, when you really break it down and think about it, that doesn't sound like a good thing. Iron Beak Owl. It's a 2 mana, 2/1, silence a minion. It is fantastic in aggro since it allows you to bypass any taunt your opponent played. And taunts are usually expensive, like I'm thinking of Sen'jin Shieldmaster, Sludge Belcher, that's being rotated out, or like Ancient of War. Things like that. Taunts are generally, like the useful ones are generally pretty expensive. So as an aggro deck, 2 mana, bam. You play a 2/1, which isn't too bad for 2 mana, and then you get past that taunt. It's cheap, so it also provides a tempo boost. Like I said, the taunt minions are expensive. If you played a cheap little owl, it kind of sucks, and overall it's pretty unfair to play, or it's unfun to play against. It doesn't really feel like, you're trying to stop the aggro, and they're just like, oh, nope, you put this card in here to, protect your face, and nope, I'm just going to take away that choice you made. And to provide more context for the nerf, I'll be talking about Hunter's Mark as well. Hunter's Mark. 0 mana, reduce a minion's health to 1. And, in short, it's a pretty simple card, but it allowed for easy removal of big expensive minions like, Ancient of War. Before, that used to be a pretty common card, then people realized, hey, For no mana at all, I can pretty much just reduce it to 0 health, then play like Unleash the Hounds or hell even a knife juggle and kill that giant 7 mana fat minion taunt. Like, it was kind of an issue. So my conclusion is Hunter's Mark and Owl allowed for many decks, both Hunter and aggro in general, to ignore your minions and remove them cheaply while still charging and hitting your face without much, counterplay and much interactivity. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it sounds good, so we'll keep it. In my opinion, fair nerfs, and it should promote a healthier, more board-based control mid-range game. Owl and Hunter's Mark will still be seen, but only as situational cards, not auto-includes, and will no longer bring easy tempo generation into aggressive decks. So you can still remove those big minions and whatnot, like I talked about. It's no longer so free and so painless for the one playing it. Big Game Hunter. Oh man. This guy has been slaughtering big expensive minions and controlling the meta for quite some time now. He is a 3-mana 4/2 with a battle cry of destroy a minion with 7 attack or more. 7 attack minions usually being expensive. Man, the problem with this card, similar to Owl, is that you would spend high amounts of mana to summon a creature with high stats to try to make the game interesting. And this guy would just blow it away with a shotgun, creating massive tempo generation while developing a decent 4/2 minion. Like the 4/2, it's not insane, but for 3 mana, and then like you destroy their Ragnaros, and then you summon a 4/2, it's like, wow, that's kind of insane. Another problem is that even in desperate situations, you could still play BGH as a tempo drop against face decks. Now, let's say your opponent has a Leper Gnome and you drop down BGH. It's not really going to stop the Leper Gnome. He's happy to trade up like that. That's a 2 mana difference. He still gets his death rattle off. He's happy to do so. Well, the old Leper Gnome, but that's just what we're talking about. I mean, granted, aggro minions, like I said, have an easy time of killing a 2 health minion, but they still have the option on turn 3, if nothing else, to just drop it and hope to stop the horde that is aggro. Now the nerf to Big Game Hunter. The mana cost got increased by 2, making it a 5-mana 4/2, but the effect is the same. It provides the same effect without the ridiculous flexibility and tempo swing, preventing the classic turn 10. You play Dr. Boom at some point, and then your opponent plays BGH and plays his own Dr. Boom. Like, it feels so crappy, because like you spent your turn doing that, and now his turn 10, bam, giant-ass minion, 2 little boom bots, and then BGH. Like, that is like the epitome of the problem of GVG and the current state of the game. Now, with the changes, I think Big Game Hunter will still be played, especially with the meta slowing down, and a lot of big fat minions looking to be played. I think it's still going to be played. It's no longer a ridiculous tempo swing. So I think it's a fair card. I think the nerf was on point. It's still a good answer to big minions you couldn't deal with otherwise. And yeah, like I think it's a fair nerf. I agree with it. Now, here's one of the most controversial of the nerf set, Blade Flurry. Old Blade Flurry is 2 mana, destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemies. Usually what you would do is you would like oil it up or like deadly poison your dagger up or whatever you would do, attack the enemy's face if they didn't have a taunt, and then when it was down to 1 charge left, you would Blade Flurry, clearing their entire board and dealing heavy burst damage. Now some nuances to it. It required a buffed up weapon to use. Very strong combo card, but as I said, it required much forethought, and it actually required staying alive to actually pull off the combo. Because doing so, like, oil was very expensive. Deadly poison is cheap, but you're only talking about a 3 damage AoE clear. That, and it's a weapon, so a lot of times you have to attack minions. So you're taking a lot of damage, so surviving to actually pull off this combo could be quite hard. And yes, cards like Preparation can make the oil combo, Blade Flurry combo easier, but like, that's also inconsistent. Now, the nerfs to it. 4 mana, destroy your weapon and deal damage to minions only. Man, they killed it on all levels. Can't burst face anymore. Now it's very expensive, and it's minions only, so it's just board clear. Like that. Oof. In my opinion, my verdict is they wrecked this card on so many levels, and the nerfs ruins arguably the only reliable deck archetype the Rogue class actually has. Blizzard is trying to push Rogue away from like weapon-based combo decks, or so it would seem, and maybe towards Poison Blade decks or some other deck archetype completely. In my opinion, the nerf was really hard, unfair, and like, I don't know, it puts Rogue in a really weird place, to be honest. I mean, I feel like if they maybe nerfed it where 4 mana and it kept it the same effect, or maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of different stuff they could have tinkered with. I think this one was the harshest nerf they gave out. Like, they kind of gave it the Warsong Commander treatment. Like, I don't think you'll see Blade Flurry played whatsoever. And like I said, I could be wrong. Meta's changing. 134 cards are going to be released tomorrow, so I don't know. It's hard to say with certainty, but I think Blade Flurry's dead until further changes. Now, here we are onto the pain in the ass aggro cards that they nerfed, which I'm pretty happy about. Knife Juggler, Leper Gnome, and Arcane Golem are the dudes we're talking about here. They're all pretty much used in aggressive decks. They usually push for face damage, or in Knife Juggler's case, they abuse early board control. Now, Knife Juggler. 2 mana, 3/2. When a minion is summoned, you throw a dagger, or something along those lines. When a minion is played, or da-da-da-da. Now it is a 2/2. The problem with Knife Juggler is that it abused early board control. And I'm talking about all these cards in conjunction, so I will come back and talk about them as a whole. Leper Gnome. The old iteration was 1 mana. It was a 1 mana 2/1. Death Rattle, deal 2 damage. Now it is a 1/1, keeping the same Death Rattle. Now the problem with this card is that if it was played turn 1, it just dealt too much damage. Because if your enemy didn't have an answer, it would attack once on on turn 2, then maybe on turn 3, and then the Death Rattle goes off. So it did like 6 to 8 damage for like 1 mana. And when you think about that 1 mana 8 damage, yeah, it's not instant, and when played late game, you don't get the same effect. I'm just saying, when you play it on turn 1, some of the results you would get would be insane, like 1 mana 8 damage. Like, that is absurd. So, I think the change is fair. Now it's a 1 mana 1/1. You can still play it. It can still get off damage. It still has its guaranteed, 1 mana deal 2 damage to hero kind of part to it. But, I think it was fair. Now, onto Arcane Golem. 3 mana 4/2 charge. Give your opponent a mana crystal. The change. Now it's a 3 mana 4/4 battle cry. Give your opponent a mana crystal. That's it. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of King Mukla. 3 mana 5/5. Give your opponent 2 bananas. It just really doesn't give enough. Like a 3 mana 4/4. Like the stat line right now is like a with Itis Darkbane or like Spider Tank, it's being rotated out, but still, like the stat line for a 3 mana minion is about a 3 mana 3/4. So making a 3 mana 4/4 give your opponent a mana crystal is a pretty terrible trade-off just for 1 bonus attack. Like, it seems pretty poor. Now, to summarize all 3 nerfs, Knife Juggler I think is now going to be fair and is no longer gouging early board presence. It'll still see play. It's going to be based more around token kind of decks. It's going to require to be more synergistic. It can't trade up as well anymore. I think it's fair, and it's no longer going to be that problematic, oh crap, they played Knife Juggler, I have no answer, game's over kind of stuff. Leper Gnome will still continue to see play in aggro decks, but will no longer have the ability to trade up, because there's a lot of like 2 mana 3/2s out there. And now it lacks that ability, but it still provides that aggro face damage that the card was built to see. Arcane Golem. As I said earlier, like Mukla, it doesn't generate enough tempo, or it doesn't do enough with its stats to justify the battle cry. So I don't think it'll see play. And as Trump said, not Donald Trump, Trump the Hearthstone player, I think Blizzard is learning that charge cards, cough cough, Warsong Commander are problematic at times, so I think they're kind of leaning away and being quite careful with what charge cards they introduce. Now here's one of the weirder nerfs, Molten Giant. It was a 20 mana 8/8, and the mana cost was reduced by each point of health your hero was missing. The nerf, they changed it to 25 mana. This nerf might be a bit too much. I think Blizzard nerfed it in fear that the meta might slow down to such a point that you couldn't burst someone when they got so low. So people playing free Molten Giants on like 10 health, maybe they thought that'd be an issue. I don't know. Like I said, maybe they're afraid they can be like, abused for late game tempo, but I don't know. I don't have the foresight they do because they have certainly been doing internal testing on how cards are functioning. So I think it's an odd nerf. I'm not sure if it's justified or not, but I'm gonna let Blizzard do their thing, and I don't know. I'll leave this one with like a question mark. I don't really know where Molten Giant's gonna end up with that nerf. And the last one on our list, pretty boring one, but I mean, it's on a list, so we'll talk about it. Is a Master of Disguise, 4 mana, give a friendly minion stealth with the stats of 4/4. 4 mana, 4/4, not bad. Battlecry wasn't too bad, not too good. It wasn't ever seen, but like it was just below the curve of playability, and rogues didn't really have an archetype to abuse that stealth mechanic. Now the stealth is only for 1 turn. That's the nerf for it. So instead of it just giving it stealth permanently, it's just stealth for this turn only. It's kind of an odd nerf. Blizzard says they're doing it to open up more design space for Rogue, possibly hinting that Rogue might be intending Blizzard might be intending for Rogue to be a more minion-based than it is currently. But from what we've seen, Rogue is pretty much like one of the decks that runs the fewest minions that I can think of, like compared to like, because there's decks like Zoo that run almost nothing but spells. That's why they're called Zoo, mid-range decks. And then I'm thinking of like the polar opposite. I'm thinking of like Freeze Mage and like Oil Rogue. They run as few minions as possible. They run mostly spells and combos and stuff. So yeah, that's all I really got on the card. It just seems like they're kind of opening up for future adventures, future expansions, and I don't know. I'm not too sure what they had in mind with this, but I don't think this will have any impact on the game whatsoever. It wasn't played before, and I don't think it'll be played now. But the card's power level is pretty much the same. I was going to do a Whispers of the Old card set rundown, evaluating each card, seeing as how the whole card set has finally been released, but I feel like it's been done many times by people already, and by people that are better at the game than me, like Strife Crow, Trump, Firebat, all those dudes. So I feel like it's been done. I feel like I'm late to the party on that as well. I mean, this literally releases tomorrow. So I feel like what I'm going to do is, open up a bunch of card packs, play around a bit, and then tell you guys what I think about the power level of the cards. Otherwise, I mean, I feel like I'll be giving you guys some crap opinions, so like we're going to avoid a bad video on that. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and please feel free to leave feedback in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a like or a dislike, and if you want to see more content, please do subscribe. Anyways, thank you for your time, and let's get ready for that new expansion.